So today we're here with Lizzie, and I'm so excited for her to get to share a little bit about her relationship with food and her experience in the Embodied Method. Lizzie and I finished working together in the Embodied Method
like August, I thought.
Yeah.
Or September.
So like 5 or 6 months ago. Lizzie, I'd love if you could start by sharing with us, what was your relationship with food like before doing the program?
That's a hefty question.
It's a loaded question, so feel free to just answer it how whatever feels good.
Okay. My relationship with food was that it was to be strategized. So it was, if you ate this in the past 72 hours, you can't have too much of this, or to keep the body that you want, you can't be eating too much of this. Like carbs were enemy and sugar was to be minimized. And my relationship with food now in hindsight was basically panic. Everything around it was panic. It was, I was fortunate enough to have the resources to have basically almost whatever food I wanted, and it was available, but it was just what was okay and what wasn't made it feel as if I was restricted, and that I basically couldn't access it at all.
Right. Like all the food was at your fingertips, but because of your self-imposed rules, they weren't allowed.
Correct. Yeah.
And how did having that relationship with food, I like how you say it was like something that you felt like you always had to strategize. How did having that relationship with food affect other parts of your life, like your happiness, your mental health, your relationships?
If I didn't work out that day, I didn't feel like I could go out. If I didn't eat correctly before I went out, I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't like to show face. With my anxiety about food, I started to develop acid reflux. I was intermittent fasting and only eating certain things and avoiding certain foods. My stomach aches began to progress to the point where 2021 spring, I started having stomach aches that would, like, I literally couldn't function. I couldn't think. I couldn't hear anybody. I was just so much in pain to the point where I actually went to the hospital. And from there, I got a colonoscopy, and they told me that they found nothing wrong except for maybe IBS. And so in that moment, I was like, I think it's time to figure out what's happening with my stomach and my anxiety.
What is your relationship with food like today?
Oh my God. That's even more of a loaded question, because there's just so much that I've gained. I mean, I don't get stomach aches anymore. I mean, once in a while I will, but for the most part, I don't wake up. I used to wake up with stomach pain, and I think it was about the idea of like the food, the eating is beginning. And I no longer have those, only once in a while, maybe when my anxiety is bad, but for the most part, not really. I've gained access mentally to all foods. I no longer am worried about what foods are going to make me look a certain way. It's more about what makes me feel a certain way. Mostly in the category of satisfaction. And then comes energy levels and fullness. And I don't always go for the low carb, low fat, 100 calorie option. I go for what is calling me. Craving is now a thing that I can hear myself thinking, and I honor that.
So cool. I'm remembering back to, if you're comfortable sharing, like, remember all the way in the beginning when you were like, okay, you literally took me to your cabinet and you're like, here's what I have. I hate all of it. Like this keto cereal, these gluten-free pretzels. And so remember, you wanted like pretzels and frosting. Do you remember this?
Yes, of course.
And I would love for you to share, like, to someone who's like, afraid of, oh my God, if I allow myself to have everything and honor my cravings, like you're saying, you can so easily do now, I'll go crazy. I'll feel so out of control. Like, what would you tell a person who thinks that, like, is thinking in that way right now?
I want to say that is like the biggest thing I hear now is people saying, oh, if I have this around, I won't be able to stop. That is like such a popular thing. And I was a firm believer. And I would eat other people's foods in college. Like I would, like if my friend had Oreos, like half of the sleeve was gone because it was close to me. Was it not mine? Of course it was not mine. And I had horrible guilt that I was eating her food, but it was there and I wanted to eat it. So I would eat her food. So once Leah told me that I could purchase these things myself, and I was living alone. So the whole cabinet, the whole kitchen, everything was mine. So I purchased pretzels and frosting, and my frosting sat until November. I still had it. And I started this in like June. So like 5 months or something, and just sat there because once I had it, I was like, oh, it's here. I don't need to have it all the time, but I feared that I would never stop because it was going to be far away. But the whole thing is that I told myself, once I finish this, I'll get another one.
Yeah.
And then I never got another one.
Yeah. So much power in that, like not living this life where food has this pull over you, where so much so that you would, be driven to eat someone else's food and feel that guilt and shame over that. So that is huge. And thank you for sharing that, Lizzie. I love to hear that transformation.
Of course.
And what would you say sort of the ripple effects of doing this work? So as we've talked about, it starts with your relationship with food and body, but how would you say it's affected you in other aspects, maybe like your health, your happiness, your friendships, your relationships, any of these pieces?
Well, I am somebody who I never knew what I wanted to do with my free time. The idea was after college, I was going to get a job, work to the bone, work out, sleep, feed myself, do my laundry, and that was like going to be life. And since I did intuitive eating work, my life became more intuitive, and I now have like all these different hobbies. I love to read, I love to mountain bike, and I love to play video games. I'm like much more in tune with my cravings for life. I stopped doing like forced workouts. Like I was doing Pilates and I was like, this isn't fun, but I have to do it. But now I obviously don't do it. And I was like, I used to do Peloton boot camps, and I would push myself, like no food in me, push myself for an hour and a half because I was like, the longer the better, the more sore I felt, the better. Now, as of like 2 weeks ago, it has been like what, eight months or so since I started this program. I didn't really do Peloton boot camps when I got into it because I was like, that is something I'm going to release myself of. And now I actually find myself looking forward to them and wanting to do them because I actually enjoy them.
Yeah.
And they're not forced.
Yeah. This changed relationship with exercise and doing it from a place of actually wanting to versus feeling like you have to in order to, be valid or meet some diet culture standards. Lizzie, what would you say was your biggest hesitation upon deciding if you were going to go all in with intuitive eating and sign up for this program?
Well, of course, it's the how difficult it is. Like it's definitely not just putting myself on a journey to be in the dumps for a while was definitely a thing that's holding me back. But as I've learned, we can do hard things. So that was one push, but also the size, the shape. Knowing that if I allow all foods, my body will go through changes. And I wasn't willing to give that up. But the core of it, when I started this anyway, no matter what I looked like, I would have hated. So it didn't even matter what I looked like at the beginning because I could be any size or shape and it didn't matter. I wouldn't have been happy.
Yeah. What changed with those two hesitations? The one about fearing or knowingly putting yourself in a position where you're going to be sitting in the suck and dealing with the hard work, and the other hesitation about fear of how your body would change. What changed and caused you to invest in your time, your energy, your money, and do this program?
What changed for, okay, so I'll start with the first one. I've already been through enough hardship. So knowing that I can come out the other end, the only way to not come out the other end is not to be alive. And I'm alive, and I am not only alive, I feel alive inside now, which is huge. Like, I honestly, there were days where if I didn't have food sourced near me, or like I didn't supply myself with food, or I was forcing myself to work out, I definitely felt dead inside. Like, I just felt like disgusting about, I had no energy. I had no push to do things or see people. I just felt really alone. I felt alone in my thoughts, alone in my body, alone in the world. So the change for that was that we can do hard things for good reason. And this was the greatest thing I could have done for myself. I mean, I feel a weight lifted off my shoulders. I feel like a new person. Like, I feel like the iron doors have opened for me. It's pretty wild. I used to believe that a smaller body meant you were more agile and more, you can become stronger easier, and you could run faster, but that's absolutely not it. It's just about doing whatever you want, understanding what body means to you. Like, what I really wanted was to be faster and be stronger. And I, through my work with Leah, now understand that. I never knew that about myself. And I'm doing that. I'm going mountain biking, and I'm trying to get better at that because I really enjoy it. And I'm getting stronger because I want to be able to, lift heavy things and have stability, and, do yoga so I can be stronger inside and mentally. And yeah, so it's, body is no longer an image. I mean, I'm working out of that. It's more of what's allowing your soul to live in this world.
Yeah. There's a quote I love that's, the body is just the keeper of your magic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add, or anything you might tell someone who's on the fence about going all in with intuitive eating and doing this program?
If you don't feel that you're living your life intuitively in any way, this is the first step. Because a big part of the food was also my inability to choose things. Because at the core of why I wasn't able to choose an activity or choose an outfit was because I wasn't certain of how things would be, what if I was wasting my time, or how is this going to look from an outside perspective? I don't care as much, because it's not about the outside perspective. It's about what's inside. And if you can't hear that, I would take the opportunity to educate yourself on what intuitive coaching does for you.
Yeah, such beautiful words. Thank you so much, Lizzie. You have so much to be proud of. It's amazing to hear you reflect on your journey all these months later. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for changing my life.